When you stand in opposition to the chosen ones of God, you're not just engaging in a worldly conflict. You're stepping into a spiritual battleground where the stakes are far greater than mere earthly consequences. The enemies of righteousness may think their manipulations, deceit, and malice will crush you, but they fail to recognize a powerful truth. You are not fighting in your own strength. God Himself fights for you, and His ways are not like ours. As the scriptures remind us, the battle is the Lord's. 1 Samuel 17, verse 47. Those who plot against the faithful often believe they are beyond reproach, thinking their evil deeds will go unnoticed. But what they fail to see is that they're digging their own pit. Proverbs 26, verse 27 warns, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them." Divine justice is not a mere afterthought. It is an inevitable truth. In the end, God allows the wicked to weave their own destruction, and those who seek to harm the righteous will inevitably face the consequences of their actions. It's not just about earthly justice or karma. The Bible teaches us that when we trust in God's protection, His plan for us will prevail. Psalm 34, verse 7 tells us, "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear Him, and He delivers them." Those who try to harm the chosen ones are, in effect, challenging God's authority and divine protection. They may think they are acting in secret, but nothing escapes His notice. So, when the wicked come for the faithful, their plans will not only fail, they will backfire in ways that reveal the truth of God's justice. The very act of coming against God's anointed becomes the catalyst for their downfall. As Romans 12, verse 19 says, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge. I will repay,' says the Lord." The Lord is a mighty protector, and those who rise against His chosen ones will soon find that they are not the ones in control. Number 1, the mirror effect. Energy works like a mirror. It reflects what's projected. When someone throws hatred, jealousy, or harm toward a chosen one, that energy doesn't just disappear into thin air. It gathers momentum, picks up weight, and turns into a force too powerful for them to contain. They think they're aiming at you, but in reality, they're setting themselves up for their own downfall. The universe has a way of balancing things, and the energy they send out will always return to them, amplified. This is a law that transcends time and space, operating in every corner of life. What they project outward is like a ripple in the pond, growing larger and larger until it consumes the very space it came from. The universe operates on a law of balance. What you give is what you get. But when you target someone protected by divine forces, the balance tips even faster and harder. That's because the chosen ones carry a spiritual immunity, an invisible armor that blocks out negativity and sends it right back where it came from. It's not a passive defense, it's active. Every attack, every word of hatred, every scheme they hatch against you only comes back to them with greater force, like a boomerang they didn't know they had thrown. The more they throw, the more they're hit. They set the trap for you, but they're the ones who fall into it. The universe sees everything, and nothing goes unnoticed. Here's the part they don't realize until it's too late. The energy they're sending is tainted by their own intentions. They're not just throwing hate. They're throwing all the chaos, fear, and brokenness within themselves. Each time they try to bring you down, they feed their own darkness. When their negative energy bounces back, it magnifies their own weaknesses, insecurities, and all the damage they've inflicted on themselves throughout their lives. The pain they're trying to impose on you becomes the poison that destroys them. It doesn't matter how they try to manipulate the situation or play the victim. The truth is clear. Their obsession with harming you becomes the very thing that erodes their world. They can't stop themselves, even as everything around them crumbles. They think they're fighting you, but they're really battling their own demons, amplified by their attacks. It's self-inflicted destruction, a fire they set but can't put out. And the chosen ones? They keep walking forward untouched, while the flames consume everything behind them. Number 2, God's justice is a surgical strike. This isn't karma or luck, it's a carefully executed plan. God doesn't just react to what's happening. He sees it coming long before it starts. Their steps are already numbered before they even take the first one against you. Every move they make, every trap they set, every lie they tell, it's already been seen by the Creator. Nothing is hidden. It's like a chess game where the outcome has already been decided, but the players are still unaware of the fate that awaits them. God, in His infinite wisdom, doesn't stop them outright. He lets them build their own downfall, step by step, decision by decision, until they reach the point where they can no longer escape the consequences of their actions. When God moves in defense of His chosen, it's not random or reckless. It's precise, calculated, and unrelenting. Divine justice is not some broad stroke of punishment. It's a surgical strike aimed directly at the source of harm. Every plot, every scheme, and every attack against the chosen one is met with an answer so exact, it leaves no room for coincidence. The very thing they thought would destroy you becomes the instrument of their own destruction. What they designed to break you ends up breaking them instead. They miscalculate their strength and underestimate the power of divine intervention. What they intended to cause pain only ends up causing them to spiral into their own undoing. The punishment isn't random. It hits where it hurts the most. For some, it's the loss of power or reputation. For others, it's their health, their relationships, or their sense of control. The unraveling is personal and deliberate, cutting straight to the core of what they value. For some, it's their wealth or status. For others, it's their very sense of identity. The more they resist, the deeper the blow, until there's nothing left but the undeniable fact that they've been stopped by a force they cannot fight. For the chosen, there's no need to lift a finger. God's justice doesn't require their input or intervention. It moves on its own, exposing every hidden agenda, dismantling every lie, and breaking down every attack with precision. And when it's done, there's no room for doubt. Their destruction wasn't accidental. It was divine, deliberate, and absolutely deserved. They cannot escape what they have brought upon themselves. Number 3, you're a living antidote to their poison. You're not just surviving their attacks. You're reversing them, unintentionally setting off a chain reaction that destroys everything unclean within their plans. It's almost as if your very existence is a threat to their dark motives. They can't understand why nothing they do works, why their lives seem to spiral out of control the moment they target you. They see you as the source of their frustration, the one who refuses to be broken. But in reality, it's their own actions that are causing their downfall. Chosen ones carry a unique energy that disrupts anything built on lies, manipulation, or darkness. You're like an antidote in a system full of poison. Your very presence neutralizes everything harmful around you without you even having to try. This isn't something you asked for. It's just who you are. You are the embodiment of purity and light, and where you walk, shadows cannot remain. The light inside you exposes the darkness in others, forcing them to confront their own flaws and insecurities. This is not something they are prepared for. For those operating from a place of malice or envy, this feels like a threat they can't ignore, a challenge they cannot overcome. They know they cannot touch you because their darkness is no match for the purity you carry. But here's the twist. Their attempts to harm you only amplify the process. The more they come for you, the more their own toxicity is brought to the surface. You're not fighting back on their level. You're operating on a frequency they can't touch. They're playing a game that they're destined to lose because they don't realize the rules are stacked against them. Trying to destroy you is like trying to poison medicine. It only makes the poison weaker and more ineffective. Every attack they launch against you is met with the force of your light, dissolving their plans before they can take root. The more they try to bring you down, the more they fall into their own trap. Every attack they launch is dismantled the moment it touches your energy. They're left with the backlash of their own hatred. The more they try, the worse it gets for them. In the end, their obsession with your downfall becomes their undoing. You didn't have to retaliate or even acknowledge them. The strength and purity of who you are were enough to protect you. The truth is, the very essence of your being is their worst nightmare. because they cannot understand how something so pure and strong can exist without being tainted by their evil intentions. And for them, that's the most unbearable truth of all. Number 4, their obsession with you is self-inflicted death. Obsession isn't just an emotion. It's a poison that creeps into the soul. It starts with the smallest of seeds, a jealous thought that lingers, an envious glare that cuts deeper than a knife. These feelings, though small, begin to fester and grow, and before long, they start to consume everything around them. As they feed this obsession, they lose control. Their thoughts, their time, their life, all become dedicated to one thing: you. They cannot enjoy their own successes or focus on their own growth because they are too preoccupied with sabotaging yours. What they fail to realize, however, is that this obsession creates an endless, inescapable cycle of destruction. The more energy they pour into trying to harm you, the more it takes from them. Their thoughts, once full of purpose, spiral into bitterness. Their actions become reckless and impulsive, driven by their hatred and envy. They stop making decisions that serve their own well-being and instead start living only to destroy you, to tear down everything you've built. But the cruelest irony is that, in all their efforts to bring you down, they only destroy themselves. Their obsession blinds them to their own weaknesses, their own flaws. As they obsess over you, they neglect their own lives, their relationships, their health, their happiness. They don't realize that their hatred does nothing to hurt you. It only eats away at them. It invades their thoughts, disturbs their peace, and slowly but surely, they lose control of their own minds. In the end, they find themselves trapped in a web of their own making, isolated from others, consumed by bitterness. They look around and realize they no longer have anything left to live for except the failed schemes that have consumed them. Their obsession, which began as a small spark of jealousy, has now become a raging fire that has burned away everything of value in their lives. They begin to measure their failure against your success, only to find that they are left with nothing but regret. What they fail to understand is that in their battle against you, they have fought only against themselves. Their energy, once directed outward, has turned inward, corroding them from the inside out. Their obsession is their undoing, a slow and painful death they inflicted upon themselves because they could not let go. Number 5, God, the ultimate trap setter. When people plot against the chosen one, they think they are the hunters, the ones in control, but what they don't realize is that they are walking straight into a trap set by God himself. They believe they are clever, outsmarting the forces of fate, but they are simply blind to the divine forces working behind the scenes. Every lie they weave, every betrayal they plan, every wicked scheme they devise becomes a step toward their own destruction. What they fail to see is that these very plans intended to harm you are actually leading them closer to their downfall. The beauty of God's traps lies in their subtlety. He does not strike with sudden, dramatic force. Instead, he allows them to believe they are winning, to watch their plans unfold just enough to give them a false sense of security. They convince themselves that they have outwitted the divine, that they have found a way to bypass his protection. Their overconfidence grows as they watch their schemes seemingly come together. They think they have everything figured out, but what they don't know is that every move they make is only digging their own grave. What they do not understand is that God's traps are not about immediate, fiery retribution. His justice is slow, inevitable, and far more devastating. He does not strike down his enemies with a single blow. Instead, he allows their own choices to lead them exactly where they need to be, at the mercy of his judgment. And when the trap springs, it is as swift and as devastating as it is humbling. All their plans, all their alliances, and all their efforts crumble, revealing their failure in a way they never could have imagined. The truth emerges, and in that moment, they realize too late that their schemes were never going to succeed. The irony is that while they were busy digging a pit for you, they were unknowingly digging their own. The harder they pushed against you, the deeper they fell into the very trap they had set for themselves. Their arrogance and pride blinded them to the warnings all around them. divine signs they ignored because they were too consumed by their own obsession. In their minds, they believed they were the masters of their fate, but in reality, they were puppets in a divine plan they could never comprehend. God's traps aren't just about punishing the wicked. They are about demonstrating his ultimate power. He doesn't just protect his chosen ones. He makes it clear that no one, no matter how clever, no matter how determined, can outmaneuver his will. And for those who dare to challenge it, their downfall is not just inevitable, it is deserved. The fall is as profound as it is final, and they are left to witness the consequences of their actions as everything they built crumbles to dust. Number 6. They underestimated the invisible shields. When people come after a chosen one, they make the fatal mistake of thinking that they are simply dealing with a person, a mere mortal who can be attacked, harmed, or broken. What they fail to see is that they are up against an invisible, impenetrable force, an entire system of protection that surrounds you and keeps you safe. This system is not a matter of chance or coincidence. It is divine, intentional, and powerful. The attacks they make against you are immediately intercepted by forces they cannot see, forces they cannot understand, and forces that work tirelessly to ensure their failure. These shields are not one-dimensional or weak. They are multi-layered and intricate. First, there is your spiritual armor, the divine favor that protects you at all times. It is not something you have to put on or acquire. It is something you were born with, something that is woven into your very essence. This armor deflects negativity and malice like a shield. So no matter how hard they try to break you down, their hatred never sticks. It simply bounces off, unable to penetrate the strength that protects you. Next, there is divine timing, an invisible force that ensures you are always in the right place at the right time. It is as if the universe itself shifts and rearranges to guide you away from harm. No matter how carefully they plan, no matter how precise their moves, divine timing works to undo their efforts before they even begin to take shape. Their attacks falter, their plans crumble, and they are left bewildered, wondering why nothing ever seems to work out. And then there are the ancestral prayers, the blessings, and the protective forces that have been spoken over you long before you ever existed. These prayers, these sacred invocations, have been set in motion through generations, building a foundation of spiritual strength beneath you. Like deep roots of a tree, these protections hold you steady no matter how fierce the storm. The power of these ancestral prayers is unseen but undeniable, keeping you grounded and unshaken while everything around you falls apart. What frustrates those who seek to harm you is the mystery of it all. They try again and again to figure out why nothing they do works. Their plans seem flawless, their intentions pure in their own eyes, yet every single effort ends in failure. They cannot comprehend why they cannot break through. What they don't realize is that they are up against shields far greater than they could ever understand. These shields are not of this world, and they cannot be broken by human hands. The more they push, the more they expose their own weaknesses. And as they grow frustrated and desperate, they begin to unravel themselves, while you remain untouchable. The invisible forces that surround you remain ever present, guarding you from harm. No matter how hard they try, they will never be able to break the protections that have been placed around you, shields they can neither see nor defeat. Number 7. Chosen ones are sacred territory. When someone attempts to harm a chosen one, they're not simply committing an act of malice or making a misguided choice. They're offending a higher spiritual order. The one they attack is not just an individual. They're walking on sacred ground, set apart by divine intervention. Chosen ones are not meant to be ordinary, and the consequences for attempting to desecrate their purpose or life are dire. Trying to harm someone who has been marked is akin to barging into a holy sanctuary with dark intentions. It's an insult to something far greater than the person being attacked. It's a defiance of divine will, a challenge to a power that can't be defeated by human strength or cunning. The mark that sets a chosen one apart isn't just symbolic, it's real. It signals to the universe that this person is untouchable, protected by forces beyond human comprehension. And when people ignore that sacred boundary and proceed with their attacks, they're not just opposing a mortal, they're defying the one who has chosen and protected them. It's spiritual trespassing, and no one can escape the price for crossing such a line. Many times, those who would harm a chosen one don't realize the magnitude of what they're doing. Blinded by envy, hatred, greed, or a desire for control, they think they're merely targeting a person. They fail to see the spiritual laws they are violating or the invisible but potent forces they are provoking. But ignorance of these laws doesn't absolve them from the consequences. The moment they act, they trigger forces that are far beyond their control. The punishment is not arbitrary, nor is it gentle. Divine retribution works in ways that are swift, relentless, and personal. It begins subtly, maybe with a loss of peace or a sense of unease. But soon, everything begins to unravel. Their health starts to fail, their relationships break down, and their life's plans begin to disintegrate. The more they push against a chosen one, the harder they fall. Their attacks lead to their own downfall because they're not just battling against another person, they're fighting against divine will. The universe has set its laws, and they cannot be ignored without devastating consequences. Those who attempt to harm a chosen one seal their own fate. It's not about revenge, it's about justice. The divine laws are already in motion, and the Creator who set them into place will see that justice is done. There's no need for the chosen one to fight back or seek vengeance. The Creator handles everything. The punishment that awaits those who trespass in a sacred territory is always greater than they can bear, and it will always come in due time. Number 8, their destruction comes in layers. When divine retribution starts to unfold in someone's life, it doesn't happen suddenly. It's not a swift blow to the head or an immediate catastrophic event. Rather, it's a gradual process, an unraveling that begins subtly but intensifies with each layer. It's a methodical destruction that takes its time, ensuring that every single action the person took to hurt or harm another is paid back in full. The first sign of this slow breakdown is often the loss of peace. Once peace is taken from them, it's like a switch is flipped in their life. What once seemed stable, predictable, and secure becomes a constant sense of inner turmoil. No matter how hard they try to find peace, whether it's through distraction, meditation, or seeking solace in others, it slips through their fingers. Restlessness becomes their constant companion. The mind is overwhelmed, and they find themselves perpetually agitated, never able to rest. This feeling of inner unrest is the first sign that divine justice is already at work. The peaceful life they once knew has been pulled out from beneath them. But it doesn't stop there. The next layer of destruction is even more painful. It's the disintegration of their relationships. People they once trusted, who were once pillars of support, begin to fade away. Friendships that once felt secure begin to turn cold and distant. Marriages that were once strong begin to crumble under the weight of unspoken tensions and unresolved conflicts. Even alliances that seemed unbreakable are strained and fractured. It's as if the foundation they built their life upon begins to disintegrate, and they find themselves surrounded by empty spaces where connections once flourished. As their relationships fall apart, their sense of self and security begins to erode. The very people who used to hold them up are now pulling away, and they are left with the realization that they've lost something far more precious than material wealth or status: their emotional connections, their sense of belonging, their support system. They're left standing amidst the ruins of their former life, confused and unable to understand why everything is slipping through their fingers. The final blow always strikes their health and legacy. When peace and relationships have been torn apart, the last part of the breakdown is the physical deterioration of their well-being. Their bodies begin to show signs of stress, chronic illnesses, exhaustion, and an overwhelming sense of fatigue. Anxiety gnaws at their insides, and they find themselves falling prey to conditions they never thought possible. Their health deteriorates rapidly, and no matter how much they try to recover, they are always one step behind. Their body becomes the battleground for the consequences of their own actions. On top of this, their reputation begins to deteriorate. The legacy they worked so hard to build starts to crumble, and their name, once respected or feared, becomes synonymous with failure. The achievements that once earned them admiration are forgotten, and what was once a prosperous life is reduced to nothing. Each layer of destruction reveals the depth of the damage they've caused, and the slow collapse continues until there's nothing left. The truth is undeniable. They are reaping the consequences of their actions, and it is too late to reverse the damage they've done. Number 9. The more they push, the more they suffer. When someone resists the divine will or fights against the plan that's already set in motion for them, they don't just experience failure. They experience suffering. Intense, personal suffering that seems to seep into every area of their life. It's as though the universe itself is tightening a grip around them, making it harder for them to escape the consequences of their actions. The more they try to push against what is meant to be, the deeper they find themselves trapped in their own self-inflicted chaos. It's like trying to escape from an inevitable force, one that's already ahead of them, pulling them further into their own downfall. Every attempt to harm, manipulate, or control only serves to make their situation worse. They think they're gaining ground, but in reality, each action they take to defy divine order is only accelerating their own demise. Every attack they launch against others is like tightening the rope around their own neck, leading them closer and closer to ruin. What they fail to understand is that resistance to the divine plan doesn't just cause failure, it amplifies their suffering. Every move they make to defy what's meant to be brings them one step closer to the inevitable truth. They can't win. They might think they're making progress, but in reality, they're simply digging themselves deeper into the hole of their own destruction. The more they resist, the more they lose. Peace slips further away, relationships deteriorate, and their mental and physical health begins to unravel. It becomes a vicious cycle. The more they fight against what is divinely ordained, the faster they spiral into suffering. The harder they push, the faster they fall. And by the time they realize the depth of their mistake, it's too late. The rope has already been tightened, and the consequences are inescapable. In the end, the more they resist, the more they push themselves into their own demise. It's as if every action they take to defy the divine plan only makes their suffering more inevitable. They're fighting a battle they cannot win, and every move they make only accelerates their own downfall. The rope is already too tight, and there's no escaping the price they must pay. Number 10. They fight forces they don't understand. These forces operate on a level that transcends anything human. It's not just a battle of wits, nor strength, and certainly not one of mere strategy. This is something far deeper. It's a battle of divine will against human arrogance. Every single attack they send toward you is intercepted by a force they can't even begin to recognize, let alone comprehend. They think they're clever, plotting and scheming in ways they believe are undetectable. They think they've figured out how to move in the shadows, manipulating the system and controlling the narrative in their favor. But the truth is, from the very moment they set their sights on you, they unknowingly set themselves up against something far beyond their reach. They don't realize that what they're truly up against isn't just another person. It's not even a mere human adversary. They are fighting divine forces, ancient and powerful, that have been in motion long before they even conceived of targeting you. These forces are not bound by the limitations of time, space, or human understanding. They are part of a much greater plan, one that they are blind to. They may believe that they're striking against you, but in reality, they're striking against something far more formidable, something that exists far beyond their control. They might think they're in control, pulling the strings, but the truth is, they're simply pawns in a much larger game. In the end, when all their efforts fail, when they are left broken, shattered, and defeated, they will wonder why nothing they did worked. The answer will be clear to you. Even if they can't see it themselves, they were never fighting you. They were fighting against divine forces that had already set the stage for their defeat. Forces that operate on a level so far beyond their understanding, so far outside the scope of their comprehension, that they never stood a chance from the very beginning. Their actions were always futile, and they were blind to it. What they fail to understand is that the battle is not against you. It is against a higher power that they can neither see nor fathom. Their efforts, their tricks, and their schemes were doomed to fail because they were always fighting against something they could never outsmart, overpower, or outlast: God's will. They cannot defeat divine protection. They cannot manipulate divine destiny. The more they try to exert their will, the more they expose their own ignorance. They believe they can win by destroying you, but they will only end up defeated because they are fighting the Creator Himself. And that, my friend, is a battle no one can ever win. Number 11. Chosen ones are transformative catalysts. Chosen ones hold an extraordinary role in the lives of those around them. Simply by existing, simply by being who they are, they become catalysts for transformation. Your presence is a mirror to those around you. You reflect back the hidden darkness in others, forcing them to confront parts of themselves they have long tried to hide or ignore. It's not something you ask for, nor is it something you actively try to do. It's not something that comes from effort or intention. Simply by walking in your purpose, by being authentic, by staying true to yourself, and by remaining under divine protection, you shine light on the places in other souls that are broken or flawed. For some people, this confrontation is the wake-up call they desperately need. They may not realize it in the moment, but your very presence in their lives serves as the catalyst for their redemption. They may resist it, they may even resent it, but deep down, they know that something has changed inside them. Your energy, your authenticity, your light shines a spotlight on their darkness. And whether they want to admit it or not, it's forcing them to face what they've been avoiding. It's that push they need to finally confront their demons, clean up their lives, and start the journey toward transformation and growth. They may not understand why they feel the way they do, but you are playing a critical role in their evolution. However, not everyone will respond positively to this kind of change. For some, facing their own darkness is too painful, too difficult to bear. They don't have the strength, the emotional maturity, or the willingness to change. Instead of embracing the growth you bring into their lives, they reject it. They push back against the light, against the transformation. The pressure of confronting their flaws overwhelms them, and they begin to spiral into further destruction. The discomfort of change is too great, and they would rather remain in their familiar misery than face the challenge of self-improvement. They choose stagnation over growth, and in doing so, they close themselves off to the very healing that could save them. But even in rejecting the opportunity for redemption, the effect is still profound. They cannot remain the same. Whether the outcome is one of redemption or destruction, your presence in their life forces a shift. The energy you bring exposes every misalignment within them. Every area of their soul that has been neglected or broken comes into the light. No matter how they react, whether with resistance, resentment, or denial, they cannot unsee what has been revealed to them. In the end, whether they choose to accept it or not, they will be forever altered. Your very existence shakes the foundation of their reality, leaving them forever changed for better or worse. Number 12. God's timing is the ultimate trump card. There is a universal truth that many fail to grasp. God's timing is the ultimate trump card. Those who seek to manipulate, deceive, or destroy may seem to be getting away with their actions for a time. Every move they make, every plan they hatch, might appear to succeed in the moment. They may think they are invincible, that they have outsmarted the system, that they have the upper hand. But what they fail to realize is that divine timing is something they can never outplay. God's clock is never late, never early. It is always perfectly on time. While they may believe they have all the time in the world to carry out their plans, to hurt others, and to manipulate situations for their own gain, they fail to understand that their time is running out. God's plan is already in motion, and there is nothing they can do to stop it. Every action they take, every scheme they try to orchestrate, is merely a distraction from the inevitable. What they perceive as victory is simply the calm before the storm. It is the false security they feel before divine judgment arrives. The patience of God is not weakness, it is strength. It is the calm before the storm. God gives them time to repent, to change, to make things right. He allows them to make their own choices, to adjust their behavior, to alter their course. But when that time runs out, there will be no more delays. When divine timing reaches its appointed moment, there will be no turning back. Their punishment will not be gradual or easy to avoid. It will come crashing down on them with all the force, clarity, and finality of divine justice. The lies they told, the betrayal they committed, the manipulation they sowed, everything will be revealed. And when it is, they will be powerless to avoid the consequences. What they think is a victory is simply the calm before divine justice descends. When judgment comes, it will be swift and unrelenting. There is no escape. The longer they push against divine order, the greater the repercussions will be. They may think they have all the time in the world, but in truth, they are only delaying the inevitable. And when the time comes, it will be irreversible. They can run, they can hide, but they cannot avoid the consequences of their actions. God's timing ensures that justice will always prevail, and when it arrives, it will be the final word. In the grand tapestry of life, the journey of those chosen by God is one of divine protection, unwavering faith, and eventual justice. While the world may throw its challenges and adversities in your path, those who seek to harm, mislead, or disrupt your divine calling are ultimately only setting themselves up for defeat. They may not realize it yet, trapped in their own arrogance and pride, but they are contending with forces far beyond their comprehension. As Proverbs 16 verse 9 reminds us, in their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Every malicious act, every attempt to derail your purpose, only serves to bring them closer to the consequences of their own choices. The true strength of the chosen lies not in physical might, but in their steadfast trust in God's perfect plan. As it says in Romans 12 verse 19, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." The universe, under the watchful eye of a loving and just God, is already working things out in your favor. Your enemies may either find redemption through the light of Christ that shines through you or face the judgment of their actions, for no one can stand against the will of God. To be chosen is not about who you are, but about the divine power that leads, shields, and sustains you. This sacred protection makes you untouchable in the spiritual realm. Psalm 91 verse 11 assures us, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." No matter how fierce the opposition, the battle has already been won, and you walk in the victory of the Lord. The enemy may roar, but the Lord's hand is mighty and secure. Keep your heart aligned with his will, for his justice is perfect and his timing always right. So stand firm in the knowledge that you are divinely protected. Trust in God's plan, for he is the one who fights on your behalf. Your enemy's fate is already sealed, but your journey is guided by his grace and love. The best is yet to come, and his blessings are abundant for you.